stay here if you want to see a man who is not afraid to expose the truth about political hypocrisy. He boldly takes aim at British politics. He is not shy about telling the truth to his face and goes against the flow when necessary. In a recent speech, he destroyed the image of Keir Starmer, aptly pointing out his inaction and helplessness in solving pressing problems. Without thinking about the consequences, he called him incompetent, stupid, emphasizing how such a policy only exacerbates issues related to migration and social justice. Can anyone else be so outspoken and audacious in their criticism? He is increasingly becoming a symbol of hope for those who are tired of false promises and empty words.
The far-right activist Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson, was today jailed for 18 months. He'd admitted contempt of court after repeating false claims about a teenage refugee. Well, Garrett Vincent is at Woolwich Crown Court for us this evening. So Garrett, what happened in court?
Well, this hearing, Mary, was the latest turn in a legal process which began some 6 years ago with a video which went...
The situation is aggravated by the fact that Starmer's actions do not just cause disappointment, they generate distrust. People have a growing feeling that the voice of their suffering remains inaudible. His every vague statement on important issues seems to sound like an empty promise, and constant uncertainty only adds fuel to the fire of despair. People who face growing problems day after day demand clarity and fairness, but only encounter uncertainty. While all foundations are crumbling and hopes for a better future are fading, Starmer continues to act with uncertainty. As a leader, he should become the personification of hope, but instead causes only disappointment, leaving people to look for answers elsewhere. Because of him, thousands of prisoners will be released early. He did it absolutely without warning and once again let his people down. There are currently just over 2,000 available places in prisons, but this number is expected to decrease again by next summer.
And because the people in charge, the posh, privileged people in charge, were acting like Charlie Sheen. I mean, really rubbing salt in the wound. And as I say, I don't get political, but they're all...
The split that we are now clearly witnessing has become an acute problem, symbolizing deeper political failures that we cannot afford to ignore. Starmer confidently promised the people that his leadership would return to its former glory. He has ensured that commitments to nationalize water, energy, railways and the Royal Mail will once again take center stage in the next election statement. But where is that determination today? Nevertheless, the recent anti-immigration riots have become a wake-up call for many, bringing to the surface fears and discontents that have long remained under a veil. This is not only a manifestation of social tension, but also evidence that Starmer is still unable to understand what ordinary British people really care about. His silence on crucial issues only makes the situation worse, leaving hundreds of thousands waiting for the change they crave. Britain needs a leader who can hear and act, not just promise.
And now, it emerges that Sir Keir Starmer took over £100,000 worth of freebies, with this graph showing that he has taken the most donations by a huge distance of any Member of Parliament since 2019, in spite of being a millionaire himself. This champion of women's rights took down a portrait of one of the greatest politicians of the 20th century, Margaret Thatcher. He claimed that that's because he actually doesn't like to be in an office where there are portraits looking down on him.
Many people today are asking a painful question: is Starmer really able to put people's interests above his own ambitions? When he took office, in the eyes of his supporters, he became a symbol of hope, a man who could change the system. He made a lot of promises in the heat of the moment to protect the rights of workers, take care of the planet, and build a more just society. But how quickly these dreams were dispelled. The first step opened the eyes of many. The rejection of key commitments turned into a blow for those who believed in his ideals. The realization that words don't always mean actions has left many hearts broken and disappointed. Starmer may have intended to change something, but now the question everyone is asking is, how deep is he willing to dig for those who really need protection? Every day, new disappointments cause an acute sense of anxiety and distrust, which are becoming more and more noticeable in society.
I think Starmer's one of the worst prime ministers we've ever had, and he's only been with us 81 days. But look what he's done in those 81 days. He's allowed the Chancellor to go ahead with a scheme where 4,000 pensioners could freeze to death this winter, and those are Labour figures, by the way, not Tory figures, OK. He's introduced a raft of policies like energy, which could make us dependent on overseas energy, ad infinitum, so dictators around the world will control what we have in this country. Never mind the sleaze. I mean, goodness gracious, he stood up in the Commons once, looked across the box at Boris Johnson and said, sleaze, sleaze, sleaze. There's never been a sleazier Prime Minister. Never been a sleazier Prime Minister.
Then Keir Starmer.
Never.
So what makes you call him sleazy? Sleazy's an interesting word for you to use.
Well, if you're walking around in other people's suits to try and improve your image, I saw one...
Well, it's his suit, it's just paid for.
According to recent polls, discontent among voters is growing and hope for change is beginning to fade. Expectations were high, but the reality turns out to be darker. People refuse to believe in promises that seem to fall out of their mouths solely for the sake of creating a political image. Every new day brings new disappointments and old problems remain unresolved, hanging over society like a heavy cloud. Starmer continues to keep the most important issues in the shadows, hesitating to offer clear and concrete measures that could change the situation. Only empty promises of reform cannot fill the cracks in the system, and this indecision calls into question his leadership qualities. While people are screaming for help, he remains silent, leaving behind only a trail of dissatisfaction and distrust. While his opponents point out these shortcomings, Starmer is increasingly losing support. Ordinary working people who hope for change are beginning to doubt whether he will be able to become the kind of leader who will really lead to progress. Time is inexorably moving forward, and what once seemed like a bright future is gradually turning into gloomy realities.
Welcome along. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have allowed asylum seekers to live in their spare homes. Oh, no, sorry, my mistake. They're profiting off the fact that you now pay for them to live on Downing Street by letting out their spare houses. Easy mistake to make. The Telegraph reports that the Prime Minister is now a landlord. It's believed that the home that he bought for £650,000 in 2004 is now worth a cool £2 million. And he could be making between £3,000 to £5,000 a month from renting it out. The Chancellor is also doing rather well. Her husband, who it will come as no surprise for you to learn, is a top civil servant, and Reeves reportedly makes 74 grand a year alone from renting out their house and a two-bedroom central London flat. It's reported that Reeves also has a house in Leeds, so that's quite the property portfolio.
It is in his interest to make our lives as bad as possible, and he only wants to impose huge taxes on us again, impose bureaucracy and additional costs on business, tax education, and allow uncontrolled migration. Now voters crave confident leaders who are ready to act without hesitation, and this desire is becoming more and more insistent. In recent months, it has become apparent that public support for Starmer is rapidly fading, resembling a bright alarm signal.
And that's what people hate. They hate the hypocrisy. They hate the perception of these entitled politicians having a great time. And I tell you what else they hate. They hate the lies. And it's quite obvious to me that there have been lies and that there are still lies. So in itself, that setup of the message during lockdown from Lord Ali's flat that was made to look like Keir Starmer's own property, that was a lie.
Many Britons, disappointed in his actions, openly demand his resignation, which casts doubt on his future as leader of the Labour Party. Experts note that more and more voters are beginning to doubt his ability to govern the country in a crisis. Members of his own party are becoming increasingly wary, their discontent painting a picture of internal instability. Starmer's problems are compounded by scandals that have become part of his political history. The fight against anti-Semitism within the party and its controversial position on Brexit only increased discontent among voters. They feel that their interests remain unnoticed and unprotected, and this provokes demands for more decisive action and clear positioning. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.